acá tiene un mute, ¿ves? Al costadito.
Ok. Para Giselle.
Reputear. Está abierto.
Esto te lo pones en el bolsillo.
Ahora no me queda tapado. Espera.
Estamos sin molesto.
Ahora está bien. Ahora reputeo.
Bueno, yo voy invitando a la mujer. Bueno, bienvenidas a todas. Ruidito. Ahí estamos, bienvenidas a todas. Muchas gracias por este cierre de año con
Good
Mujeres
morning,
Conecta
everyone.
América.
Welcome to this closing of the year. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. Also, the more than 2,500 people who are with us in virtual mode. So this is especially designed for companies and for our community. So you may be inspired, for women to be inspired, with 3 visionary leaders who are making changes at technological level and investment, and also in companies led by women. So I want to tell people who are registered online, so who are adding to the online form, that we have live interpretation in Portuguese and English. So you may also right now have access to that. So you may have translation services. Without any further ado, I'll ask Pablo Garcia to give the opening words in representation of the Inter-American Development Bank of the IDB from the Regional Integration of Women. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. So in fact, I said that I feel like at home I have 3 daughters and 3 sisters. So it's a pleasure to be working with women who are empowered. Thank you for coming for this event, for integration and commerce through Women Connect Americans. So not only for this event, but all of the work that we have done throughout the year would be impossible without all of you who are with this initiative at the bank. Everything related with gender is key. For the years, we have started dealing with these cross-sectional mode. And the bank recently has approved a new institutional strategy in which the gender issue is one of the pillars. And we're trying to advance in a cross-sectional manner, not only in the corporational part, but also in the technical training part and financing. So, with regard to that, here we have to do with the business part and internationalization process. We can see that companies led by women have a great potential to transform the country's economy at global level. Nearly 274 million companies are being created through women and by women. More than 130 million companies led by women. And that, when you make the analysis and the studies, what we do in Latin America, so we have a lot of challenges anyways. So in the development of the companies, so one has to do with finance access. Clearly, we have a financing gap there on companies that are led by companies. And then we have presentations there. So in Latin America, so a former colleague from the bank who's worked with these issues for many times now. It's close to my heart. When I lived here in Argentina, I was president of the investment bank. We launched the first line of financing for companies led by women. What we did, when we had this finance line, when we analyzed that, we saw that the companies led by women were excellent payers. They had a greater performance, better performance, and they had a possibility of return greater. And it was lower, but led by my managers. They say, no, they don't have collateral. They don't have the support network. There is a clear problem, perception. So I think part of what we have as a development bank is to try to reduce that gap. And it's simple that actually works with the government. It continues working. So it works pretty well. It's worth investing in these, improving the financing aspect. On the other hand, there is a low participation of companies led by women in the value chains in the region. 45% of small companies are led by women. They are providers of other companies, and they are connected within the supplying chain. only between 10, between 15 of them participating public purchases. So public purchases are between 10 and 13% of the NGP. So it's a clear instrument of public policy that we can use to try to close these gaps in gender. That's why one of our
Después también hay temas relacionados con que las redes de contactos son más limitadas y con temas tecnológicos y de brecha digital.
And to close the digital gap. Before these challenges, what we saw in the bank was a great opportunity. So, and the opportunity was linked to the potential technological platforms have to reduce this gender gap. In 2016, we created Women Connect Americas. This is a program by the bank within the framework of the Connect Americas platform. It's a company's, it's a business network, not all of them. All of you perhaps know. So today at the present, we have more than 200,000 women who are business women, and they have been trained to the platform. And this is a free platform in which you have access. You have also a network of women who are business women, and also have access to training that is very good. And again, they are intuitive, they are for free access. So it's a great tool that has cost, it's been a lot of work, right? We have a lot of potential there. So the call to action is for you to use it. The more you use it, the better. So we could get more feedback, anything we could change or improve. Rocio, who leads this, she's going to be glad to receive more people. I hope that this event is good, that it could be, you could benefit from this event, and you may benefit from this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pablo, for your words. So I can listen to her properly. So thank you very much, Pablo. Unfortunately, we cannot listen to the lady. Well, she needs to turn on the there. Can you listen to me? I think the device is okay. What about there? Okay, there we have it. So pretty well. We have our first speaker of today, which from California, Paola Santana. Paola is a lawyer from public affairs and churches. She is in Silicon Valley. She's currently founder and executive director of AS, a technological startup that revolutionizes the government purchase parts to the e-commerce through AI. Prior to this, she co-founded Matternet, another technological company, leader in manufacturing and operation of drones for transportation and logistics. Paola today will share her vision of different strategies so you can grow in your businesses. So
a ver.
Is yours.
Avísenme si me pueden escuchar.
Okay, now can you listen to me now? Right, making sure that you can listen to me. Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much, Rocio, and all of the team from IBD and Connect Americas for having me here. So I am from Silicon Valley. I'm not in presence mode, but I'll tell you and share with you the magic, the power, the energy of being here in the capital of technology in the world, creating high impact and value solutions. I'll be talking about moonshot mindset, which is the frame of mind that changes the world from the spin-off, from the standpoint that we, women, can advance and potentialize. I'll be starting with what the concept of moonshot is. I've been working with that for 14 years now. Every time I'm tempted to eliminate this slide, I say, okay, do you know what moonshot is about? So 2 or 3 people raise their hands. So if you allow me, I allow you to share this term in English, because for 2 reasons. When I talk about moonshot, it's a word that's in English, and it sends me a message. This message is not in a native language, so you gotta think a little bit beyond that, because this is not natural for you. I'm not talking about something as of how I've done this always. So it sends me a message that I'm talking about that I have to do differently because it's a different word. So when I communicate this to someone, I'm working on a moonshot, the other person will ask me, okay, what's a moonshot, Paola? And I have the opportunity to repeat and highlight what I'm doing. So they know that I'm doing it in a different way and in a way that's not been, that's an untrodden past. So this is what it means and where the concept of moonshot comes from. Why do some people mention the moon? Why do you choose that as an objective? You may ask as well, why to escalate the highest, why to climb the highest mountain? In 45 years, we overflown the Atlantic. We decided to go in this decade, not because they're easy objectives, because they're difficult to obtain. That challenge is going to be useful to measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is a challenge that we're willing to accept, one that we don't want to postpone, and also we try to win. So the discourse of the speech of John F. Kennedy at Rice University in 1962. Today we know that John F. Kennedy, President of the United States at that time, not only was he a visionary, but also he was a successful visionary. He had an Apollo 11 mission from 1969. In fact, was able to take out of the Earth humans into space. So, and they're to bring back all the crew with alive to go into the atmosphere and would not disintegrate in that rocket. So today we know that it was successful. But when he was talking about this moonshot in 62, it was not the first time he gave that speech. See, it was before NASA and the American Congress. We didn't know how to talk about that, how much the budget women needed for that, so and how much software they needed. Many people do not understand why. They understand because they've seen the video. Well, we chose to go to the moon. So he was pretty comfortable, but he was not comfortable really. He had the whole spectrum of emotions, without visionary, optimistic, committed, with a vision, right, with fear, with uncertainty, and with the adequate words to be able to convince a group of people to move forward with this type of project. So when we talk about moonshot, we're talking about innovative ideas that are very difficult, that we do not know how to implement, which chances of success is unknown. And many people say, Paola, with all the challenges that we have in the moonshot, why am I going to work in moonshot? So that sounds difficult. I'll see you and I notice that it is difficult. So who give me a moonshot? So moonshot gives you a super present as a person, as a woman. And also by being a project, a bigger idea, a greater idea in you allows you to grow as a woman in the size of that idea and to become that leader who could lead, inspire with that vision. So on here starts living throughout outside of that bucket list. If you wanted to go to Silicon Valley to learn about technology, you end up going to Silicon Valley and living in Silicon Valley, having several companies in Silicon Valley and generating a greater value and resources so that more people may come to Silicon Valley. And that's the type of value we create when we work in the moonshot. Silicon Valley, we have something super special, that we have a public exposition of the vision. When we have a vision prior to knowing about that, we put it outside. We are communicating what we see there. Number two, not only do we invest in one way of executing the vision, but we invest in different solutions at the same time, because we don't know which of those formulas is the one that's going to be successful. We all know that the Apollo 11 mission put this first crew on the moon. It was not Apollo 1 or 3. Another thing that is not said is that NASA was a startup when it began at that time. So they just launched it in 1958 and they had the speech of 1962. That institution was just 40 years in functions. And NASA didn't have time because they had to do the moonshot at that time. They didn't have time to wait to see if a project or one of those solutions would make sense and would generate the expected result. 2 years, and then 2 years later, and then 3 years. They began investing in microprocessors and several technological components at the same time. And one of those solutions, or several of them, made it. Not only NASA invested in that, in several solutions, they did the third point, which is called skinning the game, is to be in the arena. They invested in several solutions and then they bought 70% of microprocessors that are the small computers that potentialized the software that led those rockets to the moon. So it's not just about investing. It's, you know, when you invested, you yourself, you're going to consume it. Of course, they bought that 70% and 30% that was left from those microprocessors, they gave it to the private sector to create the industry today of microprocessors. I mean, and all those companies and created microprocessors, they potentialized computers. That came out from an investment, as we say in Silicon Valley, and discriminated. So it was this or there. So we had to invest in several things at the same time. So the last thing we did at Silicon Valley pretty well is that we know that execution is what talks. Execution is king. So it's not just what you studied, it's not the plans that you have, the ideas you have, but what have you tried physically with that knowledge you have. And that allows us, especially the Latin people and Latin women at Silicon Valley, to have an action framework that is very balanced, because when we have people who come from Harvard or from a prestigious university, so they have, so we have an educational system not that advanced. In the United States, you may say, okay, well, I don't come from Harvard, but look all what I've done. Look what I've tried out. So people who have tried things here in Silicon Valley, they have a place in investments to make up things. The first question I ask you today is, what's going to change in the world because you exist? Which are the interests that bother you, that create an easiness? What is that world vision that you have? What is that that you're going to contribute to change the world, to do something with regards to that problem you see? I've tried to do two big things. I call my experiments, or the people call it startups, and I'll share them with you so you may extract from here some learnings. So, and some actions. So, the first startups, Internet of Material, a network that instead of moving information packets, so we put items, packages decentralized in the background 24/7 to be able to skip the traditional development process. More than 1 million people in the world are totally disconnected from their primary health centers and the local services, so they cannot create a model that's sustainable to go out of the poverty circle. So we wanted to try it in the economy to more than those 1 million people, right? So 14 years ago, I had a problem. We had some technological components that we developed there. Drones already existed there to have a camera there and to make inspections or take pictures. So we said, this piece of technology, we see it and we understand it. We remove the camera and then so we could charge small loads from point A to point B. The second technological component at that time, we thought it was just about a software piece, but we know this is an AI component that tells the drone where it is located, where it's going, and it generates a route, where 80% of that route, it's about trees or places that are covered, that when the drone fails, because it's going to fail eventually, because it's a piece of new piece of technology. So eliminate or reduce dramatically the opportunity so that it may affect the life of a person or cause collateral damages. So on the third component in technology, so notice how drones work. Their AI is something that's going to be listening to the last, we've heard about the last 3-4 years. It's new. So we just launched a new 2 years ago. These are we call this land seasons, a kind of ATMs, robotic ATM that puts a new load, so it may recharge every 20 kilometers. So I'll show you what that vision is about in a holistic manner when we began with a MapNet idea. donde lo necesite.
Bueno, me escuchan ahora.
Now, can you listen to me now? All right.
¿Me pueden escuchar?
Can you listen to me?
Perfecto.
Right, perfect.
Entonces, esa fue la primera visión con ese primer experimento que comenzamos aquí en Silicon
So,
Valley. Ahí estamos en el
This
laboratorio.
experiment began in
Duramos
Silicon
mucho tiempo
Valley,
en el
so we were in the
laboratorio
lab. I
para
took
manufacturar
a
los
long time
drones,
in the lab
pensando
to
en la
manufacture
idea, pero
drones,
esa idea
thinking
no
about the idea,
comenzó a
but that idea
mejorar,
did
no
not
comenzó a
start to improve,
dramáticamente
to
acelerar
dramatically
esa
accelerate
representación de
that
cómo funcionaba en
feedback
el
as
mundo,
of how
hasta que
the work
nos
will work
salimos con la idea
until we
al mundo
left with
real.
the idea to
Este
the
fue el
real
primer
world.
caso de uso de
This
drones
is the
para
first case of use for
transporte,
drones for
en Bután,
transportation
trabajando con Doctores
in
Sin Fronteras
Bhutan,
para mover
working with
medicinas entre
Médecins Sans
hospitales y
Frontières to
policlínicas,
move medicines
clínicas muy pequeñitas
and
en
very
áreas
small
muy
clinics in
rurales que no
pretty
tenían calles ni carreteras para
distant
conectar.
rural
Aquí yo
areas.
comencé a
So
entender
here I
que
began to
más
understand
miedo de que ese
that
dron se
the
cayera, yo lo
fear
que
that
tenía era
drone would
vergüenza.
have, I
Teníamos
was
3
really
años
ashamed, not
hablando de
fear.
esa idea,
So
pero la
we
idea no
discussed
había
that for
salido. Y
3
cuando
years,
finalmente
but the
alguien
idea
dijo,
didn't come
yo tengo
out.
ese problema y yo
When they
quiero que
said,
tú
okay, I
me
have
ayudes
that
a
problem, I want you to
resolverlo.
help me
Cuando
solve it.
sacamos ese
So
dron,
when
ese
we
dron era muy
took
rudimentario
out
y
the
mi
launched
mente era
that
como una
drone,
idea
was pretty
maravilla,
rudimentary,
tenía que ser
with
bello.
just
Pero
one
cuando eso
idea.
salió por primera vez en el
So
2014, ya habían pasado 3 años
So
de
they have
nosotros
already three
hablando y
years
tratando
of
de
us talking and
levantar
trying to
capital
raise
para
some
ejecutar esta
capital
idea.
to
En
execute
esos
this
3
idea.
años no
In those
habíamos
three
podido
years,
mejorar la idea
we
porque no
hadn't
habíamos
improved the idea
salido.
because we
Y
hadn't
así comencé a
been
entender que la
launched. And when I
primera
began to
versión de
understand that the
nuestra
first
idea
version of our
nunca va a
idea
ser la mejor
is never going to
versión.
be the
Y
best
por eso hay que
version.
salir
So that's why you
rápido
gotta
con
go
esa idea que
out
teníamos. Entre el
live
2014 y
immediately.
el 2015,
Between
miren cómo
2014 and
cambió ese
16, look
drone.
how that drone
Pasamos de
changed.
3 años de estar en nuestra mente y en
In
nuestra
3 years to having
computadora
our
a
mind and
sacar un drone
computer
muy
to
feo,
take
pero
the
ya en
drone
un año,
out,
del
it was pretty
2014 al
ugly. But in a
2015,
year,
teníamos un drone totalmente
into 14 and
diferente.
15, we had a
Porque
totally
nuestras
different drone because
ideas cogen
our
impulso
ideas
y mejoran cuando las
take a
sacamos al
momentum
mundo, al
when
lugar
we
donde
take them out into the
transforman
world.
vidas.
Well, they
Este dron
transform
comenzó, en vez
lives.
de era blanco,
This drone, as you can see,
comenzamos a
was already
trabajar con
white. We
UNICEF
began
para mover
working with UNICEF to
antirretrovirales
move
en Malawi, el país
antiretrovirals in
con mayor incidencia
Malawi
de VIH en
with
el
a
mundo.
high
Y
level of
ya el dron
HIV.
comenzó a tomar
And the drone
forma, tenía
began
un
taking shape.
compartimiento donde la
And
carga
it had a
estaba segura
special
y en
receptacle
caso de que
where
el
the
dron tuviera
medicine
un
was
problema, tenía un
safe.
paracaídas
The
que
drone
reducía la
had a
velocidad
problem.
cuando el
It
dron
would reduce
caía
the speed
y
of the drone when
protegía
it
la
fell,
carga
and
de
it
una
would
manera más
protect
segura.
the
Para
load
estas
in
dos
a
versiones
safer
de
way.
nuestra
For
idea,
this
comenzamos a
improvement of our
trabajar con lo que
idea,
se
we
llama un
began
MVP,
working
un
with
producto mínimo viable.
MVP,
Esa es
so
mejor hasta el
minimal
10% y
viable
se necesita
product.
muy poca inversión.
So it leads a little
Comenzamos a
investment.
trabajar
We
ya
began working
con
there
instituciones más
with
formales como
institutions that
Aerolíneas
were more
Suiza.
formal, like Swiss Airlines, Swiss
Comenzamos a trabajar
Post.
con
We
Mercedes-Benz
began
para
with
hacer la primera y la
vans
última
and
milla
drones.
totalmente
We had the last
automatizada
mile
con
that's
drones
totally
para
automated with
transporte.
drones for
Comenzamos a
transportation.
trabajar aquí en Estados Unidos
We began working in
con
the States
los
with
servicios de logística, muy
logistics
especialmente con
services,
UPS.
especially
Tuvimos
with
que trabajar
UPS.
con la
And we
NASA,
began
el
working with
gobierno federal
NASA, the
americano,
federal
la Casa
government,
Blanca
the
y el
White
Congreso
House,
americano para
and
pasar la
American
primera ley
Congress to pass
federal
the
de
first
drones,
federal
porque
law
no
of
habían
drones,
drones, no
because there
habían
was not
leyes para
any
poder
law for
operar
the drones to
este
be
tipo de
able to
vehículos
operate these
totalmente
type of
autónomos en
vehicles that
Estados
are
Unidos.
the
Y por último, en
UVS.
el
Say,
2017, pudimos traer
and
los
so
drones a República
we finally
Dominicana, que
brought
es de donde yo soy,
drones to the
de la mano de
Dominican
IDBI y
Republic,
otros
along with the
partners locales,
IDB and other
para
local
poder
partners,
comenzar a
to
mover
start
insumos médicos
moving
de un punto A a un punto B entre hospitales
medical
y policlínicas de zonas
inputs
bastante rurales.
among
Esta imagen es
rural
importante
hospitals. This is important
recalcarla porque desde el sitio, desde uno de los
because
sitios
from
donde
one of the
teníamos la
places where
visión,
we
no
had the
pudimos operar
vision,
los drones
we
en
could
el
not
día uno,
operate the
ni
drones
en
on
el
day
día 2, ni
one,
en el día 3.
neither the
Estábamos
third
haciendo las
day.
preguntas
So we were
correctas
making the right
en un
questions.
ambiente
in an environment that's non appropriate. In Latin America, we don't have a culture of experiencing or trial and risk and not take out things until they are ready. And you launch them, you have to wait until having all the answers to launch that. So you lose the momentum, you lose the opportunity to learn. That's great. We could go back to the Dominican Republic. We had a pilot program, but it cost 5 years and trials in many parts of the world before we were able to come to the place where I had seen the problems in a very real way, which was my own country. So pay attention. So it is difficult to be a prophet in your own land and to perform our innovative projects where we, women, are trying to think out of the box with the people and the environment around us. When we began operating at moonshot level, we do have to have IFX leaps, improvement areas. So if we need a lot of investment there, well, but we need a lot of investment. We have several years testing that 10% of improvement. We can have launch a product in the market. Here I'm going to teach you the last video of the whole vision with the 3 technological components. So, if you have heard anything that has to do with drones for transportation, you gotta get to know that that company that created that transportation, so it's led by Latinos, not to move pizzas or anything like that. It was not important, but to connect the world and insert people who are behind. With Maronet, I learned a lot about Silicon Valley, and I learned a lot AdWords, how to create an innovation. So I'm looking with glass, I'm looking inside. That's the closest moonshot. So I'm a lawyer, expert in public purchase, public procurement processes, accelerating economic transportation of regional pioneers, which are the governments. So we cannot change what we cannot see. So governments have forgotten that they are the creators of space exploration programs. They're the only ones who can manage pandemics and natural disasters. They're the biggest decision makers in the world. So they're also the greater purchasers. Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs said that you cannot connect points forward. You got to trust looking backward that all the points are going to be connected. For me, glass is a mixture of what I studied law in the public sector and what I've learned about that from technologies to drone for transportation. And the common aspect is the infrastructure, physical and drones for transportation, and from point A to point B, digital infrastructure, allowing governments to have better purchases to insert all within the government economy, which is the biggest economy we haven't cracked down yet. So it's something simple. So So to execute this, to make that our businesses and companies maybe you can live in them, in fact. So those things, I'm going to switch into the obsolete and slow. So lesser procurement processes that are necessarily need a contract to be allocated. They constitute 30% of procurements made by the governments, and those are also taking the same time, paperwork, and implementation than a big purchase. And the question is, if big purchases for big companies, so how are we going to have that with the small companies? 400 million pymes, small companies from women that are supporting and promoting our economy. So we think that so with other type of infrastructure that we call G-commerce, drones for transportation, we call it Matternet. As like a moonshot is a new concept, Matternet is a new concept. It is aware that we say it to other would ask, hey, what's Matternet? So I said, okay, I'm talking about something new. So I got to explain it to you. G-commerce is government e-commerce. We're pioneers in e-commerce. So creating governments and auto locals so that the government may have access to purchase and technology. So in a verified way. So with some clicks. So the call to the action here for the government without any type of training is look for what you need, optimize the search, to allocate that purchase to a vendor based on delivery time, prices as well, and also any type of mandatory requirements. And that same user's experience may vindicate that salesperson, review the compliance documents, and also talk to the vendor and may meet the requirements. You may request quotations. You can pay a credit card from the government, a purchase order, a check, or any other payment method approved by the public institution. And here we give any government agency some panels that are visual and intelligent. So you have in real time where your order is located. So you can habilitate all those things. So our socioeconomical that are implemented. So here I present the last video. So some of the areas we know the glass and the type of rubber cell that are consuming by the governments.
Entonces,
So,
como pueden ver,
as you can see, we are creating this government infrastructure that's pretty smart. So they can have public purchases from high value. This is a very, I thought it was going to be more comfortable, but this was the second time. But this is something I know how to do, but I go back to the learning process of the ugly drone by the version thing. So I cannot see it. So I could see the first G-commerce platforms. Each one of them was different. The government in Seattle would say in Seattle City, they wanted one thing. The people, government from other city wanted to use that for another thing. So when we launched the product, we began standardizing or customizing. In 5 minutes, we can create a government market that we could be automated, digitalized, and governments may start finding those salespeople that are preference. So 5 years later, we began working in LATAM. So I go back to the subject. We need to start from scratch with the customer is, and we have to add value. At a given moment, we bring that technology. So to create them, and we need to start working in this Mexico City. At that time, we had to work. We had the city of Mexico, the first president, the first woman president. But one of the campaign points, make transparency in purchase, procurement, management. We go back to the Dominican Republic to use AI in the constitutional justice administration. The first step not necessarily is going to be with a customer, perfect customer that needs your solution. Today, with a lot of people saying, okay, the government is going to adopt that technology. They're slow, they're not innovative, whereas everyone is telling me that. So we have captured more than $5 million dollars in government orders and purchase orders. So we have more than 6 million products and services. We have nearly 3 million of small companies led by women, and they're American companies. We have a small round for Silicon Valley of investment, $3.7 million, including Google as an investors. And we've been appointed as one of the next 1,000 ideas that's redefining the American dream. What gives me the most happiness and pleasure is that I don't need to talk about financial inclusion because I don't have to include what's already inside. So of the $5.3 million that have been allocated for companies so that they could be suppliers of the state, more than 3.8 have been channeled for hundreds of small companies, business women, women's businesses that, I mean, in public policy as well. We're helping those governments to create their first online G stores that allow a triple economic impact. Small companies to small businesses connect locally and allow governments to invest and to have the local jobs. So Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg say that this is an idea, it's a no-brainer, that's innovatable. So we're looking for a new government, $3.7 trillion. But not with that, because it was not that simple when we began. Today, we have more press, more reading, more documents. Also, we need to know where those ideas come from. The decision-making table from Glass, which is serving the greatest purchase of the world, which is the federal government of the United States, is a diverse table. 95% Latins. Our team is young. Latins, where these people not only are my collaborators, but they also shareholders of the company. So starting to close to see what you could take with you. With Modernate looking outwards, I learned a lot about disruption. For the time, we had new technological platforms and new projects. We created a new experience from the user, a new financial model, a new technical business, and layers of 10%. When you have a new business model that is truly counterintuitive, so that's a problem. It follows the problem, not the money. Value is not the same as money. The user not necessarily is the customer. And you gotta focus on talking to people who really can talk and make your early adopter. So people who can have that problem to solve. That happened at UNICEF and there, to the department, so in marketing, it worked. We have transportation control. UNICEF was the first institution that pulled out budget from the logistics department and distribution. So there we realized that they did have a for transportation. So when they have antiretrovirals for isolated communities. Interestingly enough, creating new technologies with a public solution of high need, public, we created an organization of high value.
Marenet está valuada en más de $220 millones.
Organization, so with $220 million. And I didn't even know that I was a company. It was 14 years ago. My mother didn't know. She's also on the picture. She didn't know. It was the first investors in one of the key technologies that's transforming the transportation industry. With Glass, I'm looking inside because you don't learn what you think you know. So I love to discover new things in Glass, which is something that I feel that I have to learn something from the inside, not from the outside. With Glass, creating this platform for women, we're helping governments to we're finding the price of 15% cheaper than small companies, and sometimes 73% of discount. We're helping women so they could get, they could sell cheaper, and also we're making a lot of disruption in models and ultra-local logistics. Sometimes it works. My first order with Glass was amazing. So it is 1 million times better than before. That is to say, that's a reaction of one government agency. And sometimes it doesn't work. And it doesn't work, no one's going to see it because it's not on the press and neither on the presentation. What do I leave for you? What's the takeaway? Make a lot of experiments. trial and error, assuming that the best way to do something is not the way you can do it. So you need to know that everything's to be created. And Latin women, we have a competitive advantage. At the time a Latino has done something in the world, we have surpassed and overcome 1 million obstacles in economy, in education, in finance. So we have done everything without anything. And when you come to Silicon Valley, when you have the culture of yes, and how can I support you? What do you need? What's investment you require? When you put someone that has done everything without anything, when you give her the first investment capital, support, or mentorship, that Latin woman is not going to find a limit because she knows exactly how to execute it. We got to start, we Latin women, to export our know-how. The second point, we need to start having, instead of thinking about in a linear part, we need to think in exponentially. We have 3 steps and eliminate the third step, something that we have to start different. You start contradicting yourself so you don't feel uncomfortable when someone will not understand what you're saying and where it comes from. How you run away from fear? Failing. How you help our brain thinking, not copying or cheating. I'll show what I do, what I've done with my technological platforms, because if someone copies what I'm doing today, I'm talking about today, so I've been doing it for 14 years. So 20 years ago, I executed that. 14 years ago, I'm executing it today. I'm doing other things that I don't have time to communicate what I'm doing. And finally, we need to insist on the fact with our ideas. We are responsible of having our dreams come true. What's the trick? So we need to observe more, fewer processes and more trials, fail quickly and more often. Something important here to tell all the women is the issue of timing. So do not take all of your time. So when you feel ready, so you're going to be too late. So I want you to move continuously. If ideas you have and your businesses or products or project that in fact are going to transform a part of society or your community or people, that have that problem. So remember that sense of urgency so people may see those solutions you have in your mind and computer and your brain. I'll finish with the secrets. The experiment will be horrible and it will not come out properly. The first version is not the same, it's not the best. So you gotta go out faster so you can adapt and get to the best versions possible. And people can use it. And a success from overnight would take 10 years. MatterNet is previous month launched drones for transportation at the time with the manufactured transportation, which is Silicon Valley. You can enter MatterNet and you can see more video, watch more videos there. That's how we're doing it today in real time, flying drones while I'm talking. And number 2, Glass has been selected by the United States federal government for a $6 billion e-commerce initiative to become one of the platforms with Amazon will allow the government of the states and all of federal institutions to purchase totally digitally and legal with several customers. You may access gcommerce.glass and you can see more about these solutions. You're not going to change things fighting against the existing reality. To change something, you have to build a new model that makes the current model to become obsolete. And the best moment is now. The best idea is the one that you execute, that comes out of the computer and your mind and transform the world in the world. And the real pioneers, women, I'll see you women in 10 years in a Connect Americas event at Moonshot. Thank you very much for your attention.
Bueno, ¿me oyen bien? A ver.
Well,
Estamos. Bueno, muchas gracias, Paola.
thank you very much, Paola, for your disruptive ideas and innovative. They're very valuable for our audience. So before we have that, we could close these. We have something these through ideas. So with our audience, if we could have the idea that we collected, our audience would like to know which learnings have you obtained from leading startups that may be used as guide for technological undertakers, entrepreneurs, women. Number 1.
No aprendes lo que piensas
You
que ya
don't learn
sabes,
what you
no
think that
haces
you
lo que
know,
piensas que
and
ya
you
estás
don't do what you
haciendo.
think you're
Entonces
doing.
tienes que quitarte del
So
medio
you
esa
have
idea
to
para que
get out
pueda
of the
poder
way from your
ejecutarse de la
idea so
manera
the
también
idea
que
could
la
be
idea quiera
executed,
salir al mundo.
so that the
Eso es
idea
súper
may
importante
come
la
out. That's
planeación.
very important, and that is not with
Con
class.
Internet
With
aprendí el
Internet, I
valor del
learned the
fundraising.
value of fundraising.
Si estamos mejorando una
If
presentación en
we are
una computadora,
improving a
esa
presentation in our
presentación no
computer,
está
that
en las manos de
presentation
la
is
gente
not
que
in the
puede
hands of
invertir
people
en esa idea.
that could
El
invest in that
capital de
idea.
inversión no es
The
para hacer la
investment
idea. El
capital is
capital
not
de
to develop the
inversión es
idea,
para
it's
acelerar la
to
idea que ya se
accelerate
está
the idea
haciendo.
that you
Y ahí
already
tienes, como
performed.
quien dice, le pones un
And
control
there
de
you
estrategia
have a
frente. ¿Qué quiere decir
counterweight.
eso? Tú vas
What
a
it does
ejecutar
it
tu
mean?
idea.
You're going to execute
Con el
your idea
inversionista, sin el
with the
inversionista.
investor or
Si hay
without
un
him.
inversionista, tú le estás dando
If
una
you have
oportunidad
investor,
súper
that's only one
privilegiada
opportunity
de
that's
que piense
privileged.
contigo y que se
You
monte a tu
think
tren.
about and
Si ese
you get on
inversionista
your
se
train,
monta,
and that
podemos ir por
investors,
una vía que
we
a él
could
le
go one
resulta
way or
ajuste,
the
podemos
other.
ir más
So
rápido, podemos ir
you
con
may go
una vista de
faster,
otro
you may
color,
go
pero
with
tú vas a
another color,
seguir
but you are
mirando hacia
going to
adelante. Y ese es el
continue
poder
looking
de la
forward.
inversión. Pero
That's
sin
the power
inversión, y
of
eso
investment. Without
te da el
investment,
poder a ti como
you have the
emprendedora de que
power
reclames tu visión y que la
as an
ejecutes como sin
entrepreneur
dinero.
to
Sin
execute your
inversión, tú también
idea.
vas a hacer
Without
esa idea.
investment, you're going
Y
to be
es
that
una
idea,
oportunidad y un
doing
privilegio
it.
para los demás
It's a privilege
que
for the
puedan ser
others that
parte
may
de
be
ese
part
crecimiento, de
of
ese
that
journey, de esa
growth and
trayectoria
that journey,
y
and
eventualmente de ese
eventually
valor
of that
multimillonario que vamos a crear en el
multi-millionary
mundo
value
con
going
las
to create
empresas
in
que
the
estamos
world with the
construyendo. Así que
companies
esas
we're
ideas
building.
tienen que
So
salir
those
ya.
ideas need to come out
Ya, o
now.
sea,
I
es
mean
un llamado
now.
de acción de que cuando
So
se acabe este
when
evento,
this event is
ya
over,
mandes ese
now
correo,
you gotta
llames,
send
te
that
aparezcas,
email. You
hagas
gotta be there.
algo
You
que te
have to do something
recuerde
that
que
will
tú tenías
remind
un
you of the
sueño,
fact
que tú
that
tienes
you
una
had a
idea
dream,
y
that
que
you
lo que
had
tú
one
tienes que
idea,
ejecutarlo y
and it's
nadie lo va
up
a
to you
ejecutar
to
por ti.
execute it.
Entonces,
No one's gonna do
yo
it
diría
for
esas
you.
tres cosas
So
y
we give
ese
you
llamado de
those three
acción
things
de
and that
urgencia
call
con
to
nosotras
actions
mismas y
for
nuestros
urgency
proyectos
that we
Stimulate.
ourselves and projects.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias,
Okay,
Paola.
thank you very much, Paola.
Ahí estamos. Bueno,
Okay,
muchísimas
there we
gracias,
are. Thank you
Paola.
very
Un
much,
placer
Paola.
tenerte con
It
nosotros,
was a
con nuestra
pleasure to
comunidad.
have
Te
you with us in
despedimos
the
con un
community,
fuerte
so
aplauso.
we give you a round of applause.
Muchas gracias.
Thank
Bueno,
you
y ahora
very
vamos a
much.
seguir
So
con
now we're
nuestra
going to continue
segunda
with
invitada del día de la
our
fecha,
second
nada más
guest
ni nada
from the
menos
date.
que Susana
And today
García
we have
Robles.
Susana Garcia
Por
Robles.
favor, un fuerte aplauso.
Please.
Susana es la Managing Director de
Susana
Capia
is the Managing
Ventures
Director of
y es
Capia
la
Ventures.
cofundadora de WeInvest y
She's the co-founder
WeExchange
of Index and We
y lleva más
Exchange,
de 25 años
and more
invirtiendo
than
y apoyando
25
el
years
emprendimiento
investing
de
and
alto impacto
supporting
liderado por
the high
mujeres en
impact
América Latina y el
led by
Caribe.
women in the
Así que en el día de hoy
Caribbean
vamos a
and
hablar
Latin
sobre
America. So
estrategias
today
de
we'll
cómo
talk
mejorar
about
los pitch para que se
improvements, how to improve bits so we
presentar ante
can
inversores y, por
present
supuesto, cómo
before
derribar
investors and
barreras
how
en
to
materia de acceso a
turn down
financiamiento. Así
barriers
que,
with access to
la palabra es
financing.
suya.
So you have the floor.
Gracias,
Thank
Connect
you.
Americas.
Connect Americas. So we have heard all this. Make this possible. Said someone who had. I was in Virginia. Oh, okay. In Virginia. So it's not that easy. It's been a pleasure to be here in my homeland and with my alma mater, my university, with whom I worked for 20 years. So in the 2020. So it was. So at the beginning, we had. So we have some data. Okay. Okay.
Contar mi historia
To tell my
a
story
veces me hace pensar
sometimes
por qué
makes me
quieren
think,
escuchar
why
la
do you
historia
want?
de
Why do you want to
Susana
listen to the
García
story of
Robles.
Susana Garcia Robles' story? Really,
Pero con
but
humildad lo digo,
with
porque la humildad es la
humbleness,
verdad.
because
Cuando me siento a poner dos o
when I
tres o
start
cinco
to have 2
pensamientos,
or 3, 5
sí que
thoughts,
creo que contar las
I
historias
do believe that
importan,
telling the story is
porque no es
important.
fácil
It is not
pensar
easy
en una mujer
to think
que
about a
estaba
woman
en un país que no era
who
el
was in a
suyo,
country was not
Estados
hers,
Unidos,
the United
y que
States,
por 25
and that for
años
25
se haya
years
metido en un mundo que era
had
no el
gotten
mundo
into a world that
en el
was
que
not the world
empezó,
in
y por
which she
eso voy a
began.
contar un poquito
That's why I'm going
de
to
mi
share
vida
with you
personal
my personal life a
y
little bit.
lo que he logrado.
What
Obviamente
I've
nadie
achieved.
logra
Obviously,
nada
no one
sola.
achieves nothing
Entonces
alone.
acá está el gran
So
cariño que
here
le
we have
tengo
the
al
big
BID
love
y
that I
todo
have
lo que
for
me dio,
IBT and what
lo que me
it gave
permite
me,
hacer Capria,
what it
lo que
allows
me
me to do.
permite
I
ser
mean,
mi
in terms of
cofundadora en
Capria, my
WeInvest,
co-founder in
Marta Cruz.
Brinvest,
Entonces
Marta Cruz.
hay
So
mucho
we have a lot that goes behind the records of the person. But what I also think that's interesting is when before you have a person who, as I said, in real life, in many times, it's a woman who's flesh and bone. It's a real person, real women in real life. So it's not from a golden bed or no, I mean, cradle. No, I mean, it's just a common woman from middle class. I grew in a home led by women. I lived with my grandmother. We were three sisters, my mother. And really, I think that was the first thing that without noticing, when I look at my two sisters, so we have a very different pathway. But the three of us have done different things. So we are leaders in different areas. But I have never proposed that from the gender standpoint, an issue which we discussed a lot. But for me, it was natural. It was a house led and run by women, brave women, all of us. A mother, which I know that some of us had, at least in pictures, they knew my mother, and she seemed like a pretty innocent woman, and she was. But she was not innocent at all. She educated us, she raised us what you call the tough love. What was that tough love? When I returned from school, we were the three of us pretty good students. I returned with the student with 9.50 over 10. Why not 10? But not with the, say, okay, well, 9.50 to 10 is the same. No, it's not the same, because if you were smart enough for 10, you should get a 10. Everything should be 10. I said, okay. But mom, my friends, they gave her all of the everything they got because of the grades they got. I'm not gonna give you a present for the for this intelligence God gave you, so you can do something with that intelligence. And another thing that she did, which I share with you, is that eventually there was a big change in my life. And when she was in secondary school, she does a typical vocational test. What was it? Economy. I was the youngest, and I think a little bit just to, I wanted to be independent. I told my mother, yes, you know what, I was thinking about that. And very likely my mother thought, I'm going to study economy. I'm going to study philosophy and education. And my mother, so all these talks always took place on Sundays, doing the dishes, and my mother looked at me and said, and you think it's going to be easy to have a career in philosophy and education? Yes. I'm going to study philosophy and education. So I did everything I wanted. My mother always respected the freedom of her three daughters, but many a time she didn't like decisions. So yes, it was the same. So you have the freedom, but you're going to have consequences and responsibilities for the use of that freedom. You don't know to what extent in life I've remembered this. You got to have freedom, but you have to assume responsibilities. So, okay, that's very good. My first year in secondary, fifth year, I go to the States to visit my older sister, was already married to an American and having children, you know. Well, no, I really want to have children and all that. It was 2 years before everything. I could take a year. I never returned to Argentina. 1 year became 2 and 3, and then I was in a country that I was adopted by that country. I didn't want to be to go for philosophy and education. I didn't want to take the 10-hour track of the States. So I got into the NGOs, but everything within the women's leadership. And in women's leadership, it took me to work as a consultant in many of the countries and missions for the United Nations. And it led me to participate in many conferences that were very important in population and development and habitat. And I said, okay, without offending anyone, my loss of innocence, to realize that in a world scenario, the consensus was not that consensus. And emerging countries and in developing countries didn't have the same voice, and negotiations turned really terrible because we were not heard or listened to. I was for 5 years, but in year number 2 after doing that, I said, okay, I'm going to listen to my mother. I'll go back to the university and I'll go to study something there. Then I may go to an organization that has financial muscle. I'll do something for my region of origin. So I went to Columbia University, studied. Even so, I persisted to go for an MBA. I studied international economic policies, taking classes at a business school, and eventually first I was an internship of IBD, and then I began working in full time. Why do you want to say this? Not to talk about me, but to tell you that many a times people who achieve something like I have in financing, they don't have a perfect background. And women tend to think that we have to verify all of the boxes to apply to a job, to give ourselves the permit to think big, as Paola said. So no one, if I had been told that I was going to end up 25 years investing in technological startups, in fundings that invest in startups, in technologies, and doing everything I've done, that has nothing to do with my background. The most important thing is the willingness. Paula put it pretty well. But this is the willingness and the action you take with that. When I came as an intern to the FOMIN, I realized that because of my background, there was 3 months I was working in grants issues, but then I realized, I looked at the business unit, I said, that's where I want to be. So when I left, I told the manager, if I come back, I want to come back to the business unit. I said, this time I have budget, neither the position created. So pretty well, I have 1 semester there. So I said, I never visited my family in the States like in that semester because you have to make action of your willingness. My family, we are pretty close, but they didn't expect me from New York to be every 2 weeks visiting them. Well, I could spend 1 second looking at the FOMIN manager and say, no, I'm just visiting my sister. But I wanted to ask you, how is the budget going? How is it that we're creating that post? No, nothing. I said, okay. For those 5 minutes, I said, I need to wait for 15 or 20 because they were busy. So it was important because I was really busy. I finished Columbia University, so I came to Argentina for a month to rest. I went back to New York. I went to United Nations. Okay. When I returned from Holland, we created a post. If you're interested, you may accept it. Obviously, I said yes. And well, I can't remember how many hours later because I have another change. Because we got to change here. But we have to accept changes in life. And literally, a few hours later, my older sister, brother and sister's husband called me with 5 zeros bigger salary than that one of them at a company. But yeah, they had to do with technology. But he was going to have some people in Guatemala, Africa, and the States. What is it that I thought here? And I'm going to start getting up with some therapy and sitting down on the plane and here. So I said, okay, I can negotiate, right? I called the manager and I told him, okay, this is what happened. I want to go to FOMIN, but the difference is 5 zeros.
Y el gerente, a quien
And the manager at
menciono
home,
siempre
I
porque
always
fue
mention
una
because
persona
he
que a mí
was
me
a
cambió la
person
vida
who
por su
changed
actitud,
my life
dijo,
because
mira,
of his
César,
attitude.
imposible.
You know, Susanna,
Después cuando
that's
entré
impossible.
al BID me di
So when
cuenta
I
lo
got
que
into
era
the
aprobar
I
un
realized what was
presupuesto, pero él me dijo,
to
esto es
approve a budget,
imposible.
but it's just impossible.
Presupuesto que se aprueba
The
en el
budget
BID
that you
es lo
approve by
que
the
hay
IBT
por
is
ese
what you
año
have
y
for that
punto.
year, and that's it.
Pero cuando estábamos cerrando
But
la,
when we
la
were
conversación,
closing
él
the
me dijo algo
talk, he
que
told me something
él también sabía cómo
that he
llegar a
knew
mí, ¿no?
also how to
to
reach,
get me,
how
porque
to
me dijo,
get me,
bueno,
because he said,
si sos la
okay,
persona que
if you're the
conocí en el
person that
verano
I met
pasado,
in last summer,
creo que sé dónde vas a
I think
acabar,
I know you're going to
pero de
fit
todas maneras
properly.
sigamos en
But
contacto.
anyways, let's keep in
Y lo corté.
contact. I said, okay.
Y fue el momento de la gran
It
decisión
was the
en la
time of the
vida.
big
¿Qué hago?
decision in life. What am I going to
Empiezo
do?
mi
Shall I
carrera
start my
ya
career
con un cheque
with
súper
a
relevante
pretty
y
fat
empiezo a
check
tener mucho más
and
dinero?
having much more money?
Y la empresa no era mala,
The company
pero
was
era
not
una
bad,
empresa.
but
En
it
ese
was a
momento para
company at
mí
that
era una
moment. It
empresa
was a
o
company
entrar a un lugar
or to go to
donde
a place where
nadie me lo había dicho,
no one
pero yo
had told
tenía
me,
como esa
but I had
corazonada de
that
pensar,
heart
en
feeling.
este lugar,
I
porque
said,
es un
okay, in this
laboratorio
place,
de
because it's
innovación,
an
yo
innovation
voy a
lab,
poder crear
I'm going to be able
espacios
to
para mí.
create spaces for me.
Entonces, por supuesto que
So,
esto
of
sí no
course,
se lo conté a mi
this,
mamá,
I didn't tell this
porque
to my
creo
mother
que ella me hubiera
because,
declarado
I
loca
mean,
mental.
she would have declared me insane.
Llamé al amigo
I called my
de mi
friend,
hermana y dije, no,
my
Enrique,
brother's friend. I
sabes
said,
que
Enrique,
no.
you know what?
Y llamé a
No,
Don
and I
Terry
called
y le
Don
dije, sí,
Terry. I told him, yes.
nunca me arrepentí de esa
I never
decisión. Estuve
regretted
en el BID
that
20
decision.
años
It
en
was
un
in IBD for
laboratorio
20
de
years
innovación
in an
que me
innovation lab
permitió
that allowed me
innovar,
to innovate,
no tener miedo
not to
al
be
riesgo.
afraid of risk.
Y Don era una persona que
So
decía,
Don
cuando
was the
metas la
person who said,
pata
okay,
porque
when
la vas a
you
meter, la
when
sacás
you
y
ruin
venís
it,
y me
okay,
contás
take it out,
qué es lo que
get out of that, you
aprendiste.
screw it, let me know, and
Y
come out
eso
and
es
tell me what
crucial,
you
porque
learned.
en
And that
nuestra
is crucial
educación,
because in
y esto
our
importa como
education, this is important as a
profesionales,
professional.
el cometer un
So
error
making a
nos hace
mistake
sentir
would make us
fracasados.
feel
Y en
like a
Estados
failure.
Unidos lo que
And in the United
aprendí, y
States, what I
Don
learned,
era
and
americano,
Don was
es
American,
que el
is
error
that
es no
the
aprender
mistake is
de
not
tu
to learn
fracaso,
from your
no es
errors,
fracasar.
not to
Hay dos
fail.
situaciones o
We have two
experiencias en
situations
la
or
vida que
experiences
todo
in
el
life
mundo acá,
that
en
everyone
esta
here
sala y
in
en el
this room
planeta va a
and
tener.
on the planet are going to
El
have.
fracaso en algún
So
momento
failure
lo
at a
vamos a
given moment,
experimentar
we're going to
todos y la
experience it,
muerte.
and
Y a las
death.
dos hay que
And both
tratarlos
we
de
gotta
frente.
deal with them
No hay que intentar
uh,
esquivarlos. Cuando llegue
face
el
to face.
fracaso hay que
You
ver
have to
uno qué
evade when
aprende.
failure
Pero
comes, you have to
uno
see, you have to
y nuestra
restart on
educación
the
tiende a
learnings.
ser
Our
aversión
education is
al
trying to be
riesgo
an aversion
total,
to
¿no?
risk
Y yo
totally.
antes
And
cuando
I
teníamos
said
muchas
before we had a lot of
eventos de We
events of
Exchange,
we
siempre decía lo
exchange,
mismo.
I
¿Cómo te
always said
puedo
the same
contar lo
thing.
que es la
How can
aversión
I tell you
al
what the
riesgo?
version is? Aversion to risk.
Estoy caminando
So I'm walking
en alguna vereda
in any
de, no sé, vamos a
sidewalk,
decir,
let's say,
antiguas, que son
in
terribles,
Antigua, which are
me
terrible.
tuerzo el tobillo,
So
me caigo,
I twist
estoy
my
con
ankle, I
medias
fell.
esas gruesas,
I
se
have
me hace
those
una
thick,
papa, toda
uh,
corrida, y yo
I have
estoy
a swollen
yendo al
ankle,
trabajo.
and I said, okay,
Entonces
I'm
llego al
going to work.
trabajo,
So I get to
y
work,
lo primero que va a pasar
and the
es que alguien
first
me
thing
dice,
that's going
¿qué
to
te
happen is that
pasó?
they
¿Te
say, hey, what
caíste?
happened to you? You fell
¿Estás
down.
sangrando?
Oh, you're bleeding.
La reacción que uno tiene, no,
The reaction you
es la
have is
nueva
no.
moda, ¿no
It's a
sabes?
new
Uno tiene que usar una
fashion.
bien,
Or
otra mal. No,
this
no,
one is
no
good and
tengo
the other one
sangre,
is
no
not. No,
pasa
I
nada.
have blood. Nothing
Me caí,
happened.
pero no pasa
I
nada, lo voy a
fell
ocultar.
or I've
¿Por
tripped,
qué?
but
Porque el
I'm not going to
caerme
hide
quiere
it
decir qué
because I
papelón,
fell.
estabas
I
en la
have,
calle,
you
te
know what? You were in the
caíste, qué
street and you
horror, ¿no?
tripped and
Entonces,
fell.
esa
What a shame. No,
mentalidad
that
hay que
mentality,
cambiarla.
you have to
Porque
change
esa
it because
mentalidad,
that
cuando somos mujeres
mindset, when we are
profesionales,
professional
nos
women,
hace
make us
autocensurarnos. Como
auto-censor
tenemos miedo al
ourselves
fracaso,
because we are afraid of
no nos damos
failure.
permiso para
We do not
soñar.
permit ourselves and allow
Y los
ourselves to
sueños
dream.
son los que se
And
tienen que
dreams are the
convertir en
ones we
realidad.
have to
No
turn
todos los
into
sueños se van
reality.
a convertir
Not
en
all of your
realidad,
dreams are going to turn
pero
into
hay que
reality.
soñar.
But you
Y
gotta
hay que
dream.
soñar en
And you gotta
grande.
dream big.
Si a mí me hubieran dicho que iba a
If I had been
invertir en
told that I was
90
going to
fondos de
invest in
venture
90
capital,
venture capital
apoyar
funds
startups
to support
tecnológicas,
technological
apoyar a
startups,
casi todas las
support
asociaciones
almost
de
all of
venture capital de
venture
América
capital
Latina y
associations
la
in LA
regional,
and region
crear redes de
to
ángeles,
create
de
angels,
inversores, crear We
investor
Exchange
angels networks
dentro
to
del
create
BID, después
exchange
crear
within
We
IBD,
Invest cuando me salí
and then
del
we
BID.
investment when I left IBD, I said, no, this is impossible. But we can do it because
cuando uno está con una mujer,
when you are with a
normalmente
woman,
que saca 5
typically when you
contactos
take out
más
5
de
more
otras
contacts
mujeres.
from other
Y ese
women,
efecto de
and
comunidad
that
es
domino
súper
effect, the
importante.
community effect, is very
Y el
important.
networking es una de
And
las
networking is
monedas
one of the
más
coins, a
poderosas
currency
que
that's the most
tenemos todos,
powerful.
hombres y
We all
mujeres,
have, men and
obviamente.
women, obviously.
Pero para cambiar al mundo
But to
hay que
change the
cambiar las
world, you
mentes.
gotta change the
Estoy
mind, the
hablando
minds. I'm
a
talking
un grupo de
to
mujeres
a group of
profesionales.
professional women.
Todas
All
han
of them
vivido,
have
algunas
lived,
menos, algunas más,
some
en
less,
un
some
mundo que
more,
está
so
dominado por hombres, pero no porque
dominated
los
the
hombres
men.
son los
So,
malos de las películas,
no.
¿ok? Los hombres empezaron antes,
So,
entonces hay que hacer el catch-up.
yeah, we have to do
Es
the
un poco
catch
lo que
up.
decía Paola, el leapfrog. Yo, cuando a mí me
So,
preguntan, ¿sos
you have the
feminista? Digo,
leapfrog. When they told me, are you a
perdón, vivo en
feminist? No.
Estados Unidos,
I live
estoy
in the United
harta de
States
etiquetas.
also.
Feminista, no
So we have
feminista,
feminists and
liberal,
non-feminists.
conservadora,
Yeah,
republicana,
we're
demócrata,
Republicans and Democrats.
lo que sea.
So
No,
whatever
soy
you may
Susana
be,
García
so I'm
Robles y
Susana
escúchame lo
Garcia
que te
Robles,
tengo que
and listen
decir,
to what I got to
¿no?
tell you, right?
Entonces, creo que hay
So
que
I do
liberarse
believe
de
that
eso, no
to
hacer
release
un club
yourself
de
from that,
mujeres para
not to have
quejarnos
a
del club
club of
de
women
hombres,
to
sino
complain
darnos cuenta
about
que la
men's
sociedad
clubs, but
está
to realize
compuesta
that
por hombres
society
y
is
mujeres
made
y
of both
juntos
men and women, and
aportamos mucho
together
más.
we
Yo cuando me fui
contribute
del BID,
more.
me fui
When I
a
left
una
IBG, I went
firma de
to
inversión
an
global,
investment firm.
invertimos en
Globally, we invested
sudeste asiático, en
in
África, en India y en América
Southeast Asia,
Latina.
in Latin
En
America
ese
as well.
momento
And
yo
at
era
that
la única
moment, I
mujer
was the
socia.
only woman who
¿Qué
was
es lo que
partner.
dije? Y
What
digo
is it that
esto
I
de
said?
nuevo, ¿no? Porque
And I
hay
said
que
this again,
jugársela a
because we
veces.
have
Dije,
to
a ver,
play
espero
that, to run the risk
que no
sometimes.
me están buscando a mí
So I hope they're not
quieren
looking
llenar
for
una
me because they
cuota
want to fill a
o para
quota,
ponerme como la
or to put
flor o
me
el
as
florero en la mesa,
the
porque no
flower vase on
saben
the
con
table,
quién se están
because they
metiendo.
don't know who they're dealing with.
Abro la
So
boca y
I
pienso
open
lo
my
que
mouth and I
digo.
think what I say. I
Dijeron,
say
no,
what I think, excuse me.
absolutamente
No,
no.
absolutely no.
Hemos hecho nuestro due
So we have
diligence
done
y
our
nos
due
damos cuenta que
diligence. We
necesitamos más
realize that
diversidad
we
y por
need
eso
Cyber
no vas a
City,
ser la única
and that's why you're not going to
mujer
be
que
the
se
only
incorpore a
woman
esta
who's
firma.
going to be incorporated
Tenían
in this
muchísimas
firm.
mujeres
They had a
en
lot of
otros
women
niveles,
there
pero
in
no
other
a nivel de
levels,
socio.
but not
Hoy,
at
5
partner
años más
level.
tarde, tenemos una
So
CEO que es
we
mujer
have a
en
CEO
India y
that's
tenemos otra
in
socia
India. We have
que
another
está en
partner,
Nigeria,
so who's in
perdón, es de
Nigeria.
Nigeria, pero está en Kenia.
So
Entonces ya el
it's also
aspecto
in
está
Kenya.
cambiando,
So
¿no? Todavía son
the
3
aspect is
hombres
changing. So we
y
have
2
3
mujeres,
men
pero con la
and
CEO
2
estamos 3 y
women.
3,
But with
pero no
CEOs,
por
we are 3 and
cuotas.
3, not because
Yo
of the quota.
personalmente tengo
I
bastante
personally have
aversión a las
a lot of
cuotas, aunque
aversion to
entiendo que a
quotas,
veces
although I
pueden ser
understand that
necesarias.
sometimes
Pero
it could be
una cuota
necessary.
a veces te
But
hace
one quota
caminar y que
sometimes makes you
alguien
walk,
que
and
tiene el sesgo
someone who
piense,
has the bias,
llegó ahí porque se
so I've been
necesitaba.
there because I need that.
Entonces, yo cuando apliqué a
So
Columbia
when I applied
University
to
no
Columbia
hice el check
University,
de
they
latina,
had the
no
check
hice
of
el check de
Latina.
nada,
I didn't verify
porque yo
anything.
iba a
Why?
llegar
Because I
ahí
was going to get there
si tenía que llegar ahí,
if I had to
pero
get there,
no por mí
but
misma
not
lo hice,
because
¿no?
of myself. I
Entonces
did it.
creo que eso es
But I
importante.
think that is also important
Invertir
to
o
invest
trabajar en una
or
empresa
to
de
work in a
tecnología
technology
o trabajar
company
en un
or
mundo
work in a world
que es normalmente
that
más
is
dominado por
typically
hombres,
more dominated by
nos
men.
tiene que llevar a ciertas
Yeah.
cosas. Primero, piel de
So
elefante.
first, the
tomarse,
element skin.
¿cuánto me
Don't
queda?
take
3.
everything. I have
Ok.
3 minutes left.
No
Okay.
tomarse
Not to take
los temas a
not to
pecho.
take things
No es tu culpa,
personally. It's
muchas
not your
veces puede ser
fault
la
many
culpa de
times.
que dijo algo que estuvo mal,
So
pero no dejarnos llevar por eso.
not
Siempre
to let
ser
ourselves
súper
led by that.
profesionales. Si hay
So
algo que aclarar, se aclara
so
profesionalmente. No se aclara a nivel
so
personal. El
so
ejercicio de no sentirse
the
atacada,
exercise of not
personalmente es un
attacking
ejercicio
itself.
que lleva
So
muchísimo control, self-control.
so yes, to
Creo
self-control.
que también es
So I
importante
think it is also
el
important
pensar que en general
to think that in general,
la gente latinoamericana tiene
Latin
mucha
American people have
resiliencia.
a lot of
Siempre decimos que los
resilience.
emprendedores son
So
resilientes.
we
Bueno,
always say that
haciendo
entrepreneurs are
analogías, yo
resilient.
creo que
We
las
as
mujeres
women
somos un mercado
are
emergente.
an
Los
emerging
mercados
market.
emergentes
So the
son los
emerging
mejores,
markets are
donde
the
están
best,
las mejores
where you have the
oportunidades
best
de innovar,
opportunities to
de probar
innovate,
nuevas cosas, como
to try
Paola
new
decía.
things, like Paola said.
2 cosas más y
So,
lo dejo para las preguntas.
so I will leave
Ser
that for the
optimistas,
questions. Being
ver
optimistic,
siempre el vaso
to see
medio
always
lleno
glass half empty and not half full and not half empty. If you're not optimistic, that will condition not to move, not to advance forward. And I think that it is also important that someone, an undertaker in Argentina, told me once in the meeting, yeah, sometimes when I can't do it anymore, and I told my grandma, she would tell me, okay, this is also going to happen. This is going to go away. So our life film, just think about this chapter that apparently is so black today, is going to be forgotten. I have Laila here, cannot avoid because I know. We used to work together in information. When I think about women, I like to say that each woman should be an W to the 3, women who move the world. Or you move the world because each one of you has a circle of influence and a circle of friends that is not the same. So they will have some Venn diagram in some cases, but you have the power to move the world from the time you may be at. And the last thing is that a way to move the world is not to think in terms of limitations, but of possibilities. When you have a limitation or a barrier, the possibility is that I'm going to skip it up, below, on the right, on the left. What am I going to do? But it's not the barrier any longer, so I want to leave you with that, because I know there were some questions there. Thank you.
Y ahora vamos a hablar de inversión.
Now we'll talk about investment.
Vamos a prender el mic. Ahí estamos.
Turn on the microphone. Thank you, Johanna, for those inspiring words.
Bueno,
Okay, I turned it off. I'm sorry. Okay, we're fine. We're gonna close the mic. So we have some questions. We have two precisely that came from our audience. One is which key aspects should a company highlight at the time to present the investors program? And the third one, which common characteristics the companies have led by women that have obtained financing in Latin America and the Caribbean? First, are you going to talk with an investor to have run a good analysis? Who do you have in front? What is it that is of interest to that person? What solution you have to a problem that that person has? So you can see that with a vision. If it is my vision from year to 10 years, so it's not likely, right? But the world is changing at a fast speed. But we need to know that there is a plan that's 3 to 5 years to know which is your market, objective market that you want to tackle, but how much of that objective market your company could take, because the health issue you have a potential market of 300 trillion, but of that is 1%, okay, but 1% of 300 trillion is interesting. To understand that, what makes a difference from you, from 50 more companies around that are similar? Why you are going to do the best to gain that space? This is a market that has only one winner, or a market that we could have several winners and they can all live together. What is the problem and the solution? Fall in love with the problem and not of your solution, because as Paola said, you're going to have to work with that many times. To know how to request things, please. We are always told the same. Since we do much more with less money, women in general, sometimes when we have to do things, we want to be invested. We say, okay, I need a credit of 257 $500,100.
Ningún hombre va a decir eso.
No man's going to say
Un
that.
hombre va a decir
A man's going
necesito
to say I
500
need
mil.
$500,000,
Mejor 500 mil, me hago el
better
colchón.
$500,000. I have a mattress there,
Saber
a
negociar,
buffering area. Know
saber
how to
hablar de tu
negotiate,
equipo,
how to talk about your team,
saber hacerle
to
sentir
know
al inversor
how to
que
make the
conoces los
investor that
riesgos
getting to know the risks
y cómo
and how
mitigarlos.
to mitigate them.
Y antes de pasar a la segunda pregunta,
Before I go to the second
si
question,
la presentación es en
if the
inglés,
presentation is in
les
English,
pido, les
I
ruego,
beg
me
you,
pongo de rodillas,
okay,
no se
please,
preocupen
do not
por
worry
ni el acento
for the
ni la
accent
falta de
or the lack
error,
of
un error que hagan.
accuracy.
Cuando un chico está hablando
When
en
someone is
inglés,
speaking
que
in
no es
English
nativo,
who's not
de
native,
golpe está hablando entusiasmado de
sometimes he
su compañía
speaks
y
very
dice,
happy about
I
the company,
has,
says, I has.
ustedes piensan
Well,
que
you
él se
think
para y dice, uy, no,
that he
perdón,
said, no,
I
no, no, I'm
have.
going to stop, I'm sorry, I have.
La mujer a lo mejor no se
Women,
para,
sometimes
pero a
people, they
partir de
will
ahí
not
su
get out,
pitch
but
se va a
there
caer,
her pitch is
porque
going
va a
to go
empezar
down
a
because
pensar,
she's going to start thinking about,
ya metí la
so
pata
now
con el
I
verbo, y
screwed
ahora
it
en
with the
dónde más
verb,
la voy a
now where
meter. No se
else?
preocupen.
So don't worry
Soy
about it.
inversora, yo quiero
I
ver
am
tu
an
pasión,
investor. I
tu
want to see your
dedicación.
passion, your
No me
dedication.
importa si decís
I don't
I
care if you
has
say
or
I
I
has
have.
or I have.
Pero en serio que he visto
But in
pitches que se han
seriously, I've
ido
seen some
south
pitches that
en
have
el
gone
momento en
south
que pasó algo
at the
así.
time
Y no
something
tengan miedo a
happens.
hablar de
So
los
don't be afraid of
números,
talking about
porque ese es
numbers.
otro mito, que las mujeres no
That's
podemos
another myth
hablar
that
de
we women
números,
can
que
talk
no nos
about
sentimos
numbers,
cómodas.
that we don't feel
Entonces
comfortable with
rompamos ese
numbers. So
mito.
let's
La
break that myth.
segunda pregunta antes
The
de que
second
Rocío me
question
invite a
before
irme
Rocio asks me to leave
es que en
is that
general
in
las
general,
mujeres tienen
women
una visión más
have
holística.
a more holistic
Queremos
vision.
hacer dinero
We want
y
to
no
make money.
permitan
No, do not
nunca
allow,
que
never,
alguien les
ever,
diga que
someone
son
to tell
menos
you that you are
ambiciosos que
less
los
ambitious
hombres.
than men.
Queremos hacer
We
dinero,
want to make
pero
money, but
también queremos dejar
we
algo
also
más
want to
que
leave
dinero.
something else
Cuando tenemos una
than money.
empresa,
When we have a
queremos tener una
company,
visión
we
más
want to have
holística de la
a holistic
sociedad, de los
vision of
empleados,
society, of
del medio
employees,
ambiente, de qué
the
otras cosas
environment,
podemos
and
cambiar.
many other things that we can
Creo
change.
también que súper
I also
importante
think that this is very
el saber
important
que
to
las
have to
mujeres que
know that
logran
women
el
who
dinero es que
manage to
han
have
logrado
money, they have
pichear,
managed
no
to
pensando estoy
not
picheando como
to think, hey,
mujer,
you know what, I'm thinking about
porque
this
un
as a
hombre
woman.
nunca
No,
pichea
a
pensando
man will
estoy
never.
picheando como
Okay, you know
hombre.
what, I am
Entonces,
acting
no
as a man.
nos
No,
pongamos
I mean,
nosotros
let
mismos
us
las
not put
barreras,
ourselves the
¿no?
barriers.
Entonces, enfrentarse con los sesgos,
Face
pero el
biases.
sesgo puede ser
But a
tu
bias could
compañía es
be
una
your
compañía
company is a
lifestyle que solo la
lifestyle
querés para
company.
comprarle
You
más
only
ropa
wanted to
a los
buy more
chicos,
clothes
irte de
for children,
vacaciones,
go on
tener una escuela
vacation,
mejor. No,
to have a better school.
pero en
No.
vez de
So instead
pensar
of
que eso te tire abajo,
thinking that it
demostrarles
pulls you
por la
down to
manera en que lo
demonstrate
hablan
with
que
the
tu
way they
empresa es
speak
una
that your
empresa que vale la
company
pena la
is a company
inversión.
that's worth
El
investing.
networking para nosotros es más
Networking
difícil.
for us is
Las
more
emprendedoras
difficult.
que logran romper
Undertakers
un
or
poco
entrepreneurs,
que el networking
women,
no sea dominado por los
networking has
parámetros
dominated us
de
by
los hombres, sino que
men's
nosotros
parameters,
creamos nuestros
but we need
propios
to create
espacios
our own
de networking.
spaces
También
in
les es más
networking,
fácil
and it is
conseguir
easier for them to
inversión,
get
¿no?
investing.
Y lo último que
And
ya
the
lo dije,
last
pero
point
lo
that I
vuelvo
already
a
said, but I
repetir,
want
es
to
que
insist on that, is
por un
that
lado que es muy
on the
bueno,
one
las
hand,
mujeres
it's pretty good.
podemos hacer más con
Women,
menos
we
dinero,
can do
pero
more
a
with less
veces
money, but
eso nos
sometimes
hace
that
pensar
makes
un
us
poco
think that
más, no es
to
menos
go
ambicioso,
is
pero
not
nosotros
less money, less
pensamos, bueno,
ambitious.
pido esto y
But we
cuando
think,
haya
okay, I want
demostrado que lo
this.
usé
But when we
bien,
demonstrate,
pido
well, I
más.
know that pretty well,
Muchas
I
veces
ask
el
for more.
inversor prefiere ver a
Many a
alguien que diga,
times the
no,
investor
te
says,
estoy
okay,
pidiendo,
I'm
sí,
asking
por los
you
próximos 2
for the
años,
next 2
no tengo
years.
que volver a
I don't
pedir,
have
pero
to ask you,
este es mi plan.
but this
Entonces,
is my plan.
animarse, nunca
So
pichear
to
pensando
encourage
soy una
yourselves
mujer,
not to
pero tampoco
act, say, no, I
negándose.
am a woman or
No
not,
soy de las que
right?
piensan que
I am
para
not of those women
lograrlo
who
en el
say
mundo
that
de negocios
to
hay que
achieve
negar que
something in
uno
the
es
business
mujer,
world, you need
o
to
a veces
deny
una
that you're
mujer
a
es
woman,
madre, es
or
tía, lo
some
que
you're
sea,
a
tiene
mother, so
responsabilidades
you have
familiares.
family
Uno es quien
responsibilities.
es,
One,
pero
you are
con
who
su
you
propia
are,
personalidad,
with your
pero con
own
esa
personality.
seguridad de
And
pensar,
with
si
that
alguien
security,
no ve
thinking
la
about
maravilla de
if
mi
someone doesn't
negocio,
see the wonderful of
es
my
el problema de
business,
esa persona.
it's that
Pero yo
person's
la
problem.
presento
But I
convencida.
would present it
Muy bien.
totally convinced. Thank you.
Panel de lujo, muchas gracias.
But it was a great panel. Thank you very much for your work, for your. Okay.
Una presentadora más,
We have
invitada más, que la vamos
one other guest.
Algo, por favor, un fuerte
So
aplauso.
we have a round of applause here.
Giselle es la directora ejecutiva
She's
de la
the
Cámara de
executive director
Innovación y
of the
Tecnología
Innovation Chamber
Ecuatoriana y miembro
in
del
Ecuador,
directorio de
member
ALETI,
of
la
the
Federación de Entidades de Tecnología
Directorate
de la Información de América
from
Latina y el
IT
Caribe, España y
Information for the
Portugal,
Caribbean,
donde
Spain,
también
and
está a cargo del
Portugal.
Comité de
She's
Women in
also in
Tech.
charge of Women in
Gisela
Tech.
nos dará una charla sobre
Giselle
liderazgo y
will talk
transformación
about leadership
digital
and
y el
digital
impacto en los negocios de
transformation
las mujeres.
and the impact
Bienvenida,
on
Gisela.
women's businesses.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes
Okay,
con
good
todas. Voy a
afternoon,
intentar
everyone. I'm going to
quedarme
try
sentada
to
que me han
be
pedido
sitting
porque estaba con transmisión
because
en
I
vivo,
was
pero
with
ahí
live.
intentaré un
I
poco
will
no
try to be
moverme. Pero
sitting, I try
primero,
not to move.
muchísimas gracias por esta
First of all, thank you
invitación.
very
Para mí
much for this
realmente es un
invitation.
honor
It
el
is
poder
an
conversar
honor
con ustedes
to
sobre este
talk to
tema,
you about this
sobre todo
subject,
luego de
especially
tremendas exposiciones
after
y
such
experiencias que nos han dado.
experiences
Pero
you
creo que
had.
también
But
desde
I
este
think from
entorno,
the
desde
from this
un país más
from
pequeño
a
pero
small
maravilloso como
country, a
Ecuador,
wonderful country
trabajando
like
de manera
Ecuador,
regional,
working
espero poder
regional.
compartirles un poco de lo que nosotros
So
hacemos y
this is
desde lo
something
que
what we
podemos
do.
hacer como mujeres.
So and
Primero quiero
also what we could
contarles
do as
de
women.
CITEC,
You
que es
know,
la
tech,
organización que
which
represento,
is the
es la Cámara de
organization that
Innovación y
represent the
Tecnología
innovation
Ecuatoriana,
and
que
technology
es el gremio
chamber
que
in Ecuador.
representa a la industria tech
We
que opera en
represent the tech
Ecuador.
industry
Y
that
para
operates
Ecuador
in
esto es
Ecuador.
realmente
And
un
for
reto,
Ecuador,
porque si
this is a
pensamos en
challenge because
Ecuador
we
no
think about
pensamos
Ecuador,
necesariamente en
we don't
tecnología,
think about
pensamos en las
technology, we
rosas
think about
ecuatorianas que las
women
encontramos en el mundo,
and
pensamos en nuestro
roses and
camarón
flowers
maravilloso,
and
pensamos en
our
el
shrimps,
chocolate que
chocolate
es el
and
favorito de
coffee,
Oprah
which is the
Bacari en
favorite
Ecuador,
from.
pero no pensamos tal vez en
So we don't think
tecnología. Y
about technology.
realmente tenemos
And
empresas
really, we
maravillosas
have wonderful
que
companies
generan desarrollo, que
that
generan
generate
solución,
development and solutions.
empresas también de
Companies
mujeres que
also of
están
women
generando una
that are
solución. Muchas de
generating a
ellas, algunas
solution.
están aquí
Some
y
of
tuvieron
them are
oportunidad
here. They
también de
had the
venir a esta
opportunity to
semana
come
maravillosa aquí en
to this
Buenos Aires.
wonderful week in Buenos Aires.
Pero creo que aquí entra el factor
But I think we have
determinante
the
para
determining
lograr este
factor
cambio que
to
necesitamos en
achieve
el
this
país,
change we need in the
y es
country.
este
And
último
it
clic
is
que
to
nos
have
falta,
this
y es
last
creer que
click
lo
we need is
podemos
to
hacer
believe that we
y
can
creer
do
que
it.
esos sueños
And
que
to believe
mencionaba
that
Susana
dreams that
se
Susanna
pueden volver
mentioned
una realidad. Y
can
eso es lo que
come
hemos
true.
visto cada vez que salimos
And
a
that's what
nivel
we've seen every time we
internacional.
go out
O ahora, antes de
internationally.
escuchando la
Or when I
presentación,
was listening to
yo
the
decía,
presentation,
nosotros
I said,
tenemos ya
okay,
una empresa de
we
drones en
have a
Ecuador y no
drone
nos la
company in
creemos.
Ecuador and we don't
¿Y qué está
believe in
haciendo
it.
eso? Entonces, al
And
creernos
what
un
are they
poco
doing when
más
we
en lo que
believe
hacemos y
that in
cómo
what
puede
we do
impactar,
and how we could
realmente podemos
impact that,
generar ese cambio.
we can generate
Y
that
yo quiero
change?
comenzar justo con lo
And I
que
would like to
decían,
start with what they said.
Susana, ¿cuál es tu sueño?
Susanna, what is your
Y
dream?
creo que esta es la parte más importante
This is the most important
cuando
part.
queremos ver qué
We
podemos
want to
hacer,
see
cómo
what we can
alcanzarlo,
do,
y
how
no
to
solo
reach
ese
that.
deber ser de lo que debemos
And not only that it
ser
should
como
be what we
mujeres,
should
sobre todo en
be
estos
as
momentos,
women,
sino cuál es
especially
nuestro
now, but
sueño.
what is our
Y a mí me
dream?
gusta mucho hablar de esto
And I
porque
like
yo
to talk
tenía
about
3
this
sueños en
because
mi
we
vida.
had 3 dreams in my
Y esta
life
es la
as a
única parte que
woman.
les voy a hablar de
So
mí. El
this is the only
resto va
thing
a
I'll talk
ser
about me.
de otros temas.
So about
Pero
other
este era mi sueño.
topics,
Esta
this
foto
was my dream.
demuestra
This
cuál era mi
picture
sueño
shows
desde que soy
which my dream
pequeña.
was since I
Mi
was a little
sueño
child.
era
I
poder
wanted to be
desarrollarme
able to develop
profesionalmente,
myself
porque vine de
professionally
una familia en la
because I
que nos
came from a
enseñaron que todo
family where
lo
they
que
told me that
nosotros nos
everything that we
propongamos lo podíamos
want to
lograr.
do, we could do in
Somos
our
2
lives.
mujeres
So
y
we
un
have 2
hombre,
women and a
y
man.
tengo que decirle, el
And
mimado
I
era
have
el
to
hombre.
say,
Las mujeres
so the
éramos,
man
tienes
was the
que
one who was
hacerlo y lo puedes
spoiled.
hacer y lo debes
Women
hacer.
said, okay, you have to do it,
Y
you
él,
should
el
do it.
menor, el mimado, quizá
And
lo
also
debe hacer y lo
the
hace,
youngest
pero
one,
era
he does
contradictorio
what
a
he
lo
should,
tradicional. Y
but it
sabía
was
que eso quería
contradictory
hacer,
to
estudiar y
traditional.
desarrollarme
So I had to
profesionalmente.
study and
Pero
develop
también,
professionally, but
segundo,
also
sabía que quería una familia y que ese era mi
he knew
sueño.
we
Me
wanted to
veía
have a family. I
construyendo
wanted
una
to have a family.
familia desde que
I
fui
saw
muy
myself
joven.
being in a
Entonces me casé
family.
y
So
aquí
I
está
got
mi
married,
marido
and he
conmigo
was my husband with
acompañándome.
me.
Y cumplido otro de mis sueños.
And
Y
I
el tercer
also
sueño que
made one of
tenía
my
era ser
dreams come
mamá.
true.
Y esto
I
yo sí
wanted
lo
to be a
pongo como
mother.
un sueño porque creo que
That
va
for me,
más que
that's a
una
dream because
decisión.
it's
Algunas
a
podemos,
personal
pueden
decision.
decidir
Some women could
ser o no ser
decide to
mamá,
say or not to
pero
be a
para las que
mother.
decidimos de
But
ese
for
lado
those
de
women
ser
of us who
mamás,
decide to be
también llega
mothers,
una opción de
it's
poder
also
o
an option
no
to be
serlo.
able
Así
or
que no es
not to be.
directamente lo
So this is
uno
not directly
alineado
one
al otro.
related to the other.
Afortunadamente, y con un camino
Luckily,
todavía con
with the
muchos
pathway
sueños más,
still to
creo que
go
la base
around,
de esos
I think
sueños
the basis of those dreams
he ido
I
cumpliendo,
have
porque no importa cuál
accomplish
es el
them,
sueño que tengamos
regardless of
y
the dream
vamos
we have.
construyendo cada paso
We
que damos en
have to
esa
build
línea en
in
distintos
that line
tiempos. Tal
in
vez
different times.
yo quería ser mamá a mis
I wanted to be a
25
mother
y
when
a
I
los
was
32
25
está
and it
bien.
was 32.
Pero
It's
si
okay.
logramos cada uno,
But we
casarme en
of us we
Latinoamérica
want
a
to
los
want to get
30
married
es,
in Latin
ahora es más
American
común.
territories.
Hace
It's more
10 años
common. 10 years
tal vez
ago,
ya
it was like
estabas un
we were
poco
really kind of
tarde para
late
hacerlo,
to get
pero
married.
vamos lográndolo.
But we
Entonces,
are achieving
este
it.
es el primero, el
So this
pensar
is the
cuál es
first
el
to
sueño que
think,
cada una de
which is the
nosotros
dream each
tenemos.
one of us has.
Pero este sueño tiene que
But that
tener
dream,
unas
you gotta have
premisas
some principles in the time of compliance, especially in this year, because I wanted to unite in this presentation, connecting personal with professional, because I think many a times we make the mistake of thinking that one differs from the other, or they divorce. We cannot have those personal dreams with professional dreams. And this is a challenge, but we can achieve it. And the first principle I want to have here, and the message I want to pass on, is to talk about innovation. It's not an option. It's not something we say, I do it, I live it. So we live in an innovation era where every day we need to change how we're doing things from home as well as professionally. Okay, it's that innovate today and do the same the rest of the day. No, my client, with my solution, change his interests. So we looked and we saw in the video that the startup that was amazing. That is not just about, okay, I'm going to take blood out in 3 days, I'll have a solution. In 10 minutes, I'll have the results. Because we are innovating, and that innovation generates new developments. And this, in everything we do, in training part, it's not just about, okay, I studied this, I have to see this, every day we have to change and innovate. That it's wonderful in each one of the jobs we have, because we had let's say an undertaking, an entrepreneurship, or I'm part of an organization. In each one of them, we need to innovate every day. That's the way we benefit from the wonderful by technology of startups each one of you has. The second premise or principle, we talk a lot about that. We talk about diversity, live in diversity. It is very valuable to talk about diversity, because diversity is not just about where I was born or what culture I have, or which is my ethnicity. Ethnicity is also in my case, I'm a woman, but I'm also a mother. There's another woman who she didn't want to be a mother. That diversity is also within the organizations. We have to experience it and accept that fact. It's not a linear pathway that each one of us chooses. We have different spin-offs and angles, and we are diverse. We have interests. For instance, also we have Danny from Ecuador. I like talking about the history of Danny from Ecuador. He likes dancing. When we began working, he said, okay, it is fair that my schedule be flexible because I'm a mother. So suppose they have more mothers, but she likes to dance. So she had the right to leave at the right time because she was a mother. But she had another interest. That's another diversity. And that's 1,000 roles and interests. They go beyond these fundamental roles that each one of you live what you have to do. I decided to be a mother, and I respect women who decided not to be so. And we do that with example. I wanted to say, okay, I have a flexible schedule, but also the rest needs that, and this is also for men, because there is a man who's a father, and many times we standardize the fact that permits or flexibility be for women. And what about that father who also we need, where we both together work? We may have a need where we have to co-responsibilize everything all the time we're doing the activities. We have to make the efforts. And sometimes the man, sometimes the women. So to talk about diversity is not just about multiculturality, but diversity of interests, of realities and situations. This is not just about if we are doing it now at business level, but we're living, or we're doing. In Ecuador, we are having a crisis where we have timetables, we don't have power lines. But we have never experienced this. There's also diversity among countries. So we continue working there, we continue living there. So also the timetable we do it is not the same as in the reality. So what we had to prepare that in these days, I said, okay, so power went off, I cannot connect. Could you imagine? That's another type of diversity, and we need to embrace it and live it. in the
Y
world
la
we are.
tercera, uniendo
And the third
a lo
one
que
is
nos
to
amamos y nos
link what
apasiona a
we
todos, es
love
que
and we have
vivimos en un
passion
mundo en donde
to
las
live in a
habilidades
world where
digitales ya no
digital
son una
skills
opción.
are not an option.
Yo estudié ciencias políticas y
I
ahora
studied
trabajo en
political
tecnología.
sciences and I work in
Dani
technology.
trabaja en
Danny
comunicación, él está
works
en
in
tecnología.
communication.
Robert
Robert
estudió ingeniería y
studied
ahora está en
engineering and
tecnología.
now is in
Todos
technology.
tenemos
So
que tener
we
esas
all
habilidades
have to
digitales.
have
Y para nosotros como
those
mujeres,
digital
este se
skills.
vuelve
And
un
we,
tema
as
más
women,
crítico, porque
this is
regularmente
critical
pensamos que
because
las
regularly
habilidades
we think that
digitales son
the
estas
digital
carreras que las
skills are
llamamos
those
duras,
careers
en
that we
donde
call
son más de
hard
los hombres,
jobs,
pero ya está
where
demostrado en que
we
no son
have
más de ellos,
demonstrated
primero.
that.
Y segundo, que
And
donde más
also,
oportunidades laborales
we
hay
have the
es en la
most
industria de
working
tecnología,
opportunities in the
en
technology
donde más
industries.
desarrollo de una
We have the
empresa puede haber
greatest
es
developments for
generando una
company
solución
to
tecnológica,
generate a
así que
technological
no podemos
solution.
dejar que
So you
esto
cannot
sea
leave
solo para
this to
algunos,
be
sino
just for
también sea
some
para
people,
nosotros.
but also for
Y
us
ahí quiero
women.
darles algunos
I want to
datos
give you some
de por
gender
qué esto
data,
de las habilidades
why
digitales se
these
vuelve urgente.
skills are
Y la primera es que
important
solo
and
3 de
urgent.
cada 10
First is that
empleos
only
son
3 of each 10
en esta industria
employments
son
are
ocupados por
in this
mujeres.
industry are
Mientras hay una brecha
taken
de
by
talento, dicen que la
women. We have
brecha
a
de
gap of
talento digital es
talent.
de un
They say the
40%, es
digital
decir, que
talent
hay
gap is
40%
40%.
de puestos
We have
laborales que no
40%
están
of
siendo ocupados
working
porque no hay
positions that are
quien
not
los
being taken
ocupe.
because you
Entonces
don't have
tenemos esta
a
necesidad de
person with the
desarrollarnos
skills. We have this need to
profesionalmente,
develop
de
ourselves
reducir las
professionally,
brechas
to
de
reduce
falta de
gaps
empleo. Es ahí
of
donde
lack of
está el
employment. It
trabajo
is
que
there
podamos
with
tener. No
the
podemos ser
job
3
is
de
we can
10.
have. We cannot
Y
be
no es
3
un
of
3 de
10.
10
This
porque
isn't
así es
3
la
of
realidad, es
10
porque
because that's the
creemos que
reality, because
nosotros
we
en esta
think
industria no
that we in this
necesariamente
industry, not
aquí somos
necessarily here,
la
we
cuota
are
diferente
the
al
different quota
tradicional, pero
to
en
the
cualquier
traditional.
lado son
But
muchos menos
anywhere
cuando
we
están
have
en
fewer
un evento
than
de
we are
tecnología
in
y
a
son siempre más
technological
hombres que
event.
mujeres o
We
tomando
always have
decisiones
more
más
men than
hombres que
women
mujeres.
making decisions.
El segundo tema, ¿por
So
qué
the
tenemos
second
que nosotros
subject I wanted to
incluirnos
talk
en
about
este
this
mundo
in
laboral
this moment
y
in this
ser parte
working
de esta
and to be
constante
part of
innovación
this
y desarrollo y
innovation
de
and
cumplir con
development
estos
and
sueños?
to comply
Es
with
que
these
si ya
dreams
existe una
is
brecha
that if we already have
salarial, que es una
the salary
preocupación y se
gap,
trata
this is a
de
concern we have
eliminar esta brecha salarial
to
entre hombres y
eliminate the salary
mujeres,
gap
en
between men
nuestra
and women.
industria de
In
tecnología,
our
las mujeres pueden
industry of
ganar
technology,
hasta
women
4
can make even
puntos
4
menos
points
del promedio del
less
resto de
than the
industrias.
average of the
Es
other
decir, que si
industry
ya hay
than
brecha
men.
en esta y más,
So we
entonces
have a
tenemos
gap
que
here. So
involucrarnos para
we need to
cambiar estas
engage ourselves to
realidades.
change this
Y
reality.
tercero, porque el
And
cerrar
third,
estas
because
brechas
by
también haría
closing
que
this
los países más se
breach would
desarrollen.
make
Uno,
uh,
porque podríamos cerrar
countries to
estos
develop themselves
desempleos
with
que
the
no se dan. Dos,
NGP.
porque estaríamos creando soluciones y
Secondly, because
herramientas
we are
con una
creating
visión más amplia y
solutions and
holística que
tools
no solo
with a
tenga
holistic
prejuicios o bias
vision
que están
that
enfocadas
are
en el género masculino,
focused
sino que
in the
nos tenga
gender
a todas con
and
esta
could have all
diversidad de
women
la
with
que
this
hablábamos. Entonces aquí hay una
diversity we
responsabilidad
discussed.
que tenemos no
We have
solo
a
como interés, sino
responsibility
porque
not as
realmente
an
es una
interest, but
necesidad a
also
nivel
because
mundial.
we have a need at global
Y por
level.
último, este tema es tan
And finally,
importante
this
que el
thing, this topic is
ODS 5,
important, the
que es el de equidad de
development,
género,
sustainable development
todos conocemos los objetivos de
objective,
desarrollo
gender
sostenible, que
diversity.
nos quedan pocos
You
años
know
para
about this, we
cumplir
have
con
very few
todas
years to
las
comply
metas
with all these
propuestas, pero desde hace
objectives.
2 años el
But for
ODS
3
5
years
ya
now, the
puso un
the
subobjetivo
S
específico de hacer que las mujeres,
the
para lograr la
Sustainable
equidad de
Development
género,
SDO in
adquiramos
gender
habilidades
equity, we need to
digitales.
get
Entonces ya
digital
no solo es
skills.
porque es la
It's not
tendencia,
just because
porque
this is a
está de
trend,
moda, es porque
but
en
because it's
verdad no va a
trendy.
haber
It's
desarrollo
because
si
we're not going to
nosotras
have
como
development
mujeres,
if
en
we,
donde
as
más empleos se
women,
generan,
where we have
no
the most
estamos
employment
ahí siendo
generated,
parte del
are not
desarrollo de la
there.
industria o
We need to
generando
be
nuevas
part of the
oportunidades.
development of the
Así que tenemos
industry.
ahí un gran deber.
So we have a great
Y luego, ¿cómo
challenge
logramos
there.
todo esto? De entrar
How do
en
we
la
manage
industria.
that?
3 minutos, era eso
3
ya.
minutes? Okay.
Así, bien.
Okay.
¿Cómo hacemos?
How
Y yo quiero
do
darles 3
we, I want
recomendations
to
de
give you
cómo
3
entrar en la industria,
recommendations.
cómo generar
What's the
desarrollo,
industrial life, how to
cómo
develop, how
prepararnos para
to
esto. Y la
increase, how to
primera, y
prepare
creo que
ourselves
con
for
las 2
that. And the first thing with
presentaciones
the
que
2
tuvimos
presentations we
antes, se
had
alinea
before we
totalmente,
align totally
es alinear
is
nuestro
to
proyecto
align our
con
project
nuestro propósito.
with the
Muchas veces
purpose in life,
pensamos que, ok,
passion.
esta es la moda,
Many
esto es
times
lo
you
que me
say,
va a
okay,
generar
this is
empleo,
what's
listo,
your
hago
goal,
esto.
this is going to
No,
generate
eso
employment.
fracasa.
So
Porque
that's
cada uno
good
de
enough.
nosotros tiene que encontrar
Each one
ese
of us need to
propósito.
have that
Tal vez
purpose in
esa
life.
empresa que
Maybe
Susana
it's that
mencionaba
company that Susana
era un
mentioned
opción y
So
económicamente lo primero que
this is
nos
an
dicen es
option,
económicamente, pero ese
and
propósito,
so
si
we have a
unes, puede llevar
purpose.
también a cumplir
So
otros
we
sueños
have
y de
it will
otra
lead us to
manera
make
esas
some
metas que tenemos.
events in
Entonces
those
alineemos, no es,
tasks we
y
have.
tampoco es el
We need
copiar
to
lo
go
que nos
online. It's not
gusta, qué
just to copy
hacemos,
and
cuál es ese propósito
paste
que cada uno
what the other
de
one
ustedes
is doing.
tiene
What's
y
the
cómo
purpose each
unimos
one
al
of you
proyecto
has,
que queremos
and how
desarrollar.
we work with the project we want to
El
develop.
segundo es priorizar
The
y
second
enfocar.
point is
A
to
las mujeres nos
prioritize
encanta
and
hacer mil cosas
focalize.
a la vez.
So we
Y nos
like to do
encanta el tener,
a thousand things
tengo
at the same
7
time.
emprendimientos,
I have
tengo 12
7
proyectos, estoy en todas
entrepreneurship
las
projects.
actividades.
So I
Está
am in
bien,
all
y
of
esa
the
es nuestra
activities. That's
esencia, y
okay, and
esa
that's presence.
multitasking nos
And that multitask is wonderful. So we need to focus and prioritize. And that comes with this mixes, okay? So professional and personal. So we otherwise will be frustrated. We feel that we cannot make it. So how are we going to do this? Prioritizing and focusing. So it sounds good. But we managed to do this in the personal issues, our interests, and our responsibilities, prioritizing which projects we want to develop, we can achieve really to reach those objectives from this development in the industry. Third, never stop learning, but don't never stop teaching. I love that. So today we have Susana teaching us all her experience. Is the most valuable. We learn, yes. We can learn from that, obviously. Connect Americas is going to give us that wonderful platform we have. But if we do not see that we could teach in our environment, reach there, we're not going to play that development we need. So always learn every day. Let's look for something to learn. And also, I think this is important. From the technical chamber I represent, and the team we do a lot, is to connect ourselves among ourselves. Networking is valuable. Support space is to have a mentor, to give our time to for mentoring, generates change. And this is precisely what Connect Americas did. And that's exactly to remind you of this, to remind you of this wonderful mission. It's not just a platform where you have courses that are pretty well and wonderful, but it's a platform that has us today, that makes you together, that communicates, that makes you look what you need, and we can have that support person. And we as women, perhaps we see that as something. So this is the most important. We do that in go to events, get connected, online, virtual mode, face-to-face mode. We gotta take advantage of every space where you have a man or woman who can give us a guide and what pathway to follow, how we can do it as well. But from the small point of view, we have a big startup. We want to export to 10 countries. So in these spaces is what we have. There's no thing that we just think about this. This is all the stage of life and professional development. I want to finish saying that everything that I have told you is not just because we are here and want to work and develop, it's because the industry needs us. That's where we gotta be. So one of the main challenges here for the use of AI in these last years that has become so democratized is that all this information, all gathered by these database, most of it is historically by men. That's where we want to get there and eliminate those biases and algorithms. How? Being part of the industry that needs us. I want to finish reading these. I'll stop here. So I'm going to stay at that here. Last week, a dear friend of mine met with her for a book called Women, Equity and Diversity. I think it was beautiful to close that with one of those quotes. A woman says there is not a perfect formula to change the game, but we can always make big transformations from our own surroundings. So this is just an invitation to appreciate differences, singularities, and to open the windows of opportunities for everyone. We want to change the world, we got to change the person's life next to me. So the person who works with us, okay, we had a change for everyone. And so that these challenges and opportunities of need that society has made become a reality. Thank you.
Ya me hasta la última, ya ni la. Ya.
This is the last one, okay.
Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gisela. Really, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you, each one of our speakers, Paola, Gisela, Susana, for participating in this great encounter. We want to close the year with a great special event for all women of our community. I want to thank you more than 2,500 people who are following us today through the website. I want to close with short Connect America's words with more than 200,000 women who are business women, more than 80,000 companies led by women. I want to reach more, we want to reach more women
Así
more
que a todos los que
spaces.
nos están oyendo
So
por la
all
web,
of
mujeres
you who are
presentes,
listening
pasen
to
la
us
voz,
and
las
women
invitamos a
here,
registrarse, a
pass
quienes
on
no
the
estén
way, register
registradas,
yourselves
y
if you're
también
not registered.
aprovechar para
And also
anunciar
take
que
advantage
el
to
próximo
announce
año
that
vamos a estar
next
lanzando
year we'll
uno de
be
nuestros nuevos
launching
programas
one
de
of our new
capacitación y
programs of
asistencia
training
técnica en
and
materia de
technical
acceso a
assistance in terms
financiamiento,
of
que sabemos que
access
muchas
to
mujeres
financing.
empresarias
We know that
están
many
pidiéndolo.
women
Así
are
que en este
asking for that.
programa que vamos
So
a
in
estar
this program that we'll
lanzando
be
el próximo
launching
año, vamos a
next
tratar de
year,
fortalecer la
we'll try
estructura
to
financiera de las
strengthen the financial
empresas,
structure of
tratar de
women's companies,
conectarlas
try to connect them
con el sector
with
financiero
the
y
financial
por
sector,
supuesto que
and
puedan
of
acceder
course,
a
that you may
recursos
have
de
access to
financiamiento y de
financing
inversión,
resources and
¿sí? Para
investment
hacer crecer
resources
sus negocios.
to make those
Así que desde
businesses
ya,
grow.
muchas gracias.
So from
Estén
now on,
atentos a
thank you very
nuestras
much.
redes,
Please pay attention
síganos,
to our
síganos en nuestras
networks.
newsletters.
Please
Y
follow
bueno,
us in our
esperamos verlos
newsletters.
la
We hope to
próxima.
see you
Realmente fue un gusto
next
tenerlas.
time. It was a pleasure to
Saludos
have
a
you
todos.
all. Many greetings for everyone.
Ah, voy a entregar.